Let's go. Welcome back to the RPO College Football Podcast. This is your host, Jerome Jones. And I got my guy, none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ray Roberts. How you doing, Ray?
I'm good, Jerome. How are you?
I'm doing well. As you see, I kind of tripped myself up because, my boys won. My boys won. Let's go. My boys won. Just had to put that out there. But we are a college football podcast. So I'm not on that too much. But how you been, man? How you been?
I'm good. I'm good. Busy at work and waiting for football to come because as much as I am a baseball fan, I just
Yeah. So
always
this
kind of
is
tread water all the time, and then with
yeah,
Sunday
this is the time of year when everything kind of starts for me as far as sports. And this in the concept of watching sports. I mean, basketball season ends and then like there's baseball, but I don't really get into baseball early, so there's really nothing until like training camp starts, and then training camp kind of starts, and it's kind of slow. You kind of like get the feel of it. Then you start getting preseason, start warming up. Then you're like, ooh, okay. You start getting that little, okay. Then a couple of college games start, and usually week zero is usually a little slow with the games, but you're just excited that football's back on, and then the NFL comes, and then that's when the season really starts. That's when you know it's ready. That's when you know ready. So we're not too far away from it, guys. We're not too far away from it, guys. So just definitely stay patient. Definitely stay patient. But while we're being patient, we're going to talk a lot about some football stuff. So let me adjust my camera real quick. There you go. We're going to be talking about some football stuff. As you've been keeping up with us or watching us, we've been talking about individual teams and doing a preview on the 2003 season going into the 2024 season. So let's get right into it. We got a good lineup of teams today, but we're going to talk first about the Memphis Tigers. So the Memphis Tigers had a actually fairly good season last year, being 7-6. Wasn't horrible. It wasn't great. I'm pretty sure they wanted more better than that. But let's talk about the teams. Ray, what you think about some of the players, quarterbacks, things like that. So right off the bat, Ray, a lot of freshmen and one senior coming in, which is Seth Higgins, sorry, um, Hennigan. Ray, what do you think about the quarterback position before we get to any other position, real quick?
I like Ryan Hennigan. I think he's a nice little quarterback. He's a nice player. Memphis is known to be a team that is a good offensive team usually.
They are.
I like Hennigan. I think he's a good player. Javion um, Ducker is a running back, and for
Yeah.
some reason his name escaped me for a second there. But he's a young guy too, so they had a decent year last year, but they do have a lot of young players, a lot of juniors playing this year. So we'll see how things go for them.
Yeah, very very young teams, especially at the offensive side of the ball. I mean, just looking at it now, one, two, three, four, five, six,
I mean,
seven.
basically three of their starting five offensive linemen are juniors. So that's
Yeah,
usually not a good situation all the
they
time.
probably got a good like maybe 13 offensive players that are above upperclassmen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very interesting. Out of what they probably got like 30 people on all,
Mm-hmm.
so almost more than half then of their roster is you know underclassmen and freshmen. So that's going to be very interesting. I'll talk about that. But as we all know, how Memphis is with their running backs, they produce a lot of good running backs. A lot of their running backs go into the NFL. We already talked about Ducker a little bit. Anybody else kind of stand out to you in this list of running backs to you?
No, I mean they have him and they have Sutton Smith who is a sophomore, so we'll see how things work out for him. The one player they do have on the team is wide receiver Towski Dove. He's a
Mm-hmm.
senior. He was a transfer from where the heck did he transfer from last year? From Missouri. So
Missouri.
he's a nice player. He had a good year in Missouri last year, so I think their offense will be pretty good again this year. And then For them, it comes down to can they get their defense to do anything? And last year they were not good, so that's why they were so up and down, basically.
Yeah, and let's talk about the defense real quick, Ray. Anybody stands out to you on that defensive line? Again, very young team overall. What do you think about the defensive
I
line?
like Jason Allen, their senior defensive end. He plays like weak. He kind of moves around a little bit, weak end, strong side defensive end.
Yeah.
He's a nice little player. I like Davian Ross, their cornerback. He's a senior. He's a nice little player. I think that he's a guy that will be drafted fairly early, I believe. I think they're again, they have certain players. The thing that scares you is even up front, they have three seniors, and only Jason Allen is okay.
Mm-hmm.
Kamandi Hamilton is a junior, so we'll see what they can get out of him. Again, their defense is traditionally not great anyway, so
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, his brother plays on the team too. I think I could be mistaken, but anyway, yeah, this team, it's a lot of unknowns with this team. Like we say, it's very young, and it could go either way. But I do think they got some good head coaching there, overall. And I think this is a pretty good team. So let's get to our schedule real quick, Ray. Like I said, there was 7-6 last year. This year they'll be opening up at home versus Bethany Cook. They're going to be away against Arkansas State. They're going to be home for the next 4 games, which is going to include Navy, Missouri, Boise State, and Tulane. They're gonna be away versus UAB and North Texas. Home versus South Florida. Away versus Charlotte. Home versus SMU and away versus Temple. So with that schedule, right? How you think they're gonna fare this year?
I honestly, Jerome, I see it probably about the same type of a record.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they win one more game.
What's going on, Chris Thomas? Thanks for coming on with us, man.
Thanks for doing that, Chris. I think they'll be okay. I don't know a whole lot about all the teams that they're going to be playing this year yet. I haven't really dove into all of them. But and we know UAB is usually a good team. Navy, even though they handled Navy pretty easy last year, usually plays hard.
Mm-hmm.
Missouri is probably a loss. Plus, that Missouri game, even though it's listed as a home game, it is in St. Louis. So I don't know what the situation there, but it's probably kind of like a common ground type of a thing. So I don't know. I don't see them winning that game. Boise State, we know, is a good team, and that's not going to be an easy game either way. UAB at their ball field is usually a fairly good team. Mm-hmm. North Texas is a game they probably should win or better than them, but we'll see. USF is a tough team at Charlotte, MSU or SMU, and then at Temple. Mm-hmm. They probably should win 4 of those games. So we'll see.
Yeah, me looking at this schedule, and usually you kind of go through the schedule and be like, all right, that's a loss, that's a loss, that's a loss. None of these games just 100% strike me as a win or a loss. It's like very close games. So if these teams can get up, they can get up and play fairly well this year. Again, like I always say, it really depends on the quarterback play. And this team is very, very young. That kind of scares me a little bit with that kind of deal. They do have a long stretch at home, which is always fair well for the home team. Like you said, one of those home teams might not actually be home, maybe like a neutral field. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Ray. I mean, if there are two games that maybe 3 games that I would definitely watch out for, I would say Missouri, Boise State, and South Florida. All the other games, I think they can win, but also they can lose to them. Like the only team that I think they should definitely win is really Bethune Cook.
Yeah, I think they should beat Bethune-Cookman. I think they should beat Tulane. Mm-hmm. I think they should beat North Texas. and they should beat Charlotte. But like you said, them other games are like they can go either way kind of games. So
Yeah.
again, I see them winning 7 games.
Wow, Chris giving them 10-2. Wow, Chris.
Wow, that's strong.
That's very strong. That's very strong.
Um,
I'm curious, Chris. What makes you think 10-2? Let us know in the comments. Definitely let us know what you think. We'll have them 10-2. But yeah, wow, that's very very strong. Strong strong opinion. I like it though. Hey, if that's what you feel, and you think that's
I
you feel
mean,
good about it. Hey, take it.
I mean, Hemigan. I keep Hennigan. Yeah, I
Where's
mean,
the heart? I know.
he's thrown for like 7,000 yards the last 2 seasons.
Yeah,
So I mean, he has talent. I mean, again, it's never Memphis's offense that scares me though. If you look at their
yeah.
scores last year, they gave up 49, 34, 32, 33, 47, 38, 35. Now, some of them games they win, but again, that's a lot of points, man.
That is a lot of points.
A lot of points. They
Yeah.
lost to, for example, they lost to, who was it? I just saw the score. They lost to North Alabama, 59-0. And North Alabama is a good, solid team, but
Yeah, but man,
59-0.
that's that's embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie, that's embarrassing. That's interesting. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how this goes with these guys, man. I think like I said, it could go either way with them. A lot of these, a lot of these teams are very neck and neck, I think, with them. So we'll
Yeah.
see. But I mean, obviously, hope they do well. Hope they do well. So all right, let's move on to our next. Gonna be Cardinals. Now they ended last year 8-5, a little bit better than Memphis. Obviously, their whole team is looking under a couple of guys right now. I think the runner up right now will be Plummer, if I'm not mistaken, as their quarterback. But they got a couple of other guys, a couple of seniors in the spot. Brock Doman and Evan Connolly right there. So they're a little bit more seasoned at the quarterback position than Memphis was. Overall, Ray, what do you think about this team?
I think Louisville is a good, solid program. I see like they won 8 games last year. I can't see why they wouldn't win that many this year.
Yeah.
I think that Amari Higgins Bruce is a wide receiver, who's a good football player.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Plummer, we know, is a transfer from coming in this year, who's a good player. I think that I think Louisville is a good, solid program with a pretty good roster. I
Definitely.
mean, I see a lot of young players on defense.
Mm-hmm.
On offense, not as many. So I expect their offense to be a little bit better than their defense this year.
Yeah.
And again, it will pretty much come down to if the quarterback plays well, and I think Plummer will play pretty well for him. So
Correct. Correct. No, I think so as well. I think he's a solid quarterback. I don't think he's like world beating, but I think he's a solid guy. Um, to get back to Chris's comment real quick, he says that Memphis has a favorable schedule and a long homestand can build your momentum. I agree with that. That's actually a good assessment. That's
again, I think that they have a shot to win.
yeah,
If they won more than 8 games, I'd be surprised. I would be. I don't think. I think there's too many teams there that I don't think they will beat. I don't think they'll beat Missouri. I
yeah.
don't believe they'll beat Boise. I don't
Mhm.
think they'll beat Temple. Temple's a tough defense. I think they'll have a hard time beating Temple in Philadelphia. I do. But I think there are a few games that could go either way, and they'll be the games that pretty much decide what they do. So,
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I know. I agree. All right, let's get back to Louisville. So, a couple of names I want to throw out there. D'Angelo Hutchinson. I think he's going to be a good addition for them in the secondary. At some point, he's going to start. I think he's going to rotate some time in there. They got a freshman named Marquise Groove, Grove. He's down here. He was down here in Georgia. Very be from Georgia. I think he's gonna really help them contribute at one point as well. Antonio Watts, another Georgia guy that should do well for them. Any other defensive guys kind of stand to you, Ray?
I mean, I like the guys you just said. I think that really those guys who come in and compete could
Mm-hmm.
do a nice thing for them. I like Ashton Gillett, their defensive end. I think he's a good football player. I like their nose tackle Desmond Tell. I think he's a junior. They're both juniors, and I think they're both good solid prospects. I think they'll do a good job for them. They have Benjamin Purry, who's a sophomore, who's like a kind of a mix between a D back and a linebacker, who's a nice football player.
Mm-hmm.
I think that again. I think their defense is pretty good, though.
Yeah,
You look
they
at
got a lot of Georgia guys. Looking at it right now, they got a lot of Georgia guys.
they do, and again, them young guys coming in, I think will help them.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be a good team. I like Louisville this year. I think they're going to have a nice season. So
Definitely. All right, let's look at this schedule real quick. So, like I said earlier, they were 8-5 last year. They will be starting at Georgia Tech, which I might actually try to go to that game. Fun fact: I was just at Georgia Tech's field this weekend. It's pretty nice. I like it. It's pretty nice field. So I definitely be trying to go to one of those games. All right, so they'll be at Georgia Tech. They'll be home versus Murray State. They'll be at Indiana. They'll be home versus I'm sorry. Yeah. They'll be home versus
college.
Boston College. They'll be at North Carolina State. They'll be at your place. I'm sorry, home for Notre Dame. Sorry, words are hard. They'll be home for Notre Dame, playing your guys down here in Georgia, down there in Louisville. Sorry. They'll be at Pittsburgh. They'll be home versus Duke and Virginia Tech and Georgia. So 3 games stretch at home. They'll be at Miami, and they'll be home versus Kentucky. So looking at the roster array, and you already said that you think they're gonna have a good season. Now looking at their schedule, how do you think about that?
I think 8 or 9 wins could be pretty achievable for them. I think that they have a tough stretch of games at NC State, Notre Dame, at Pittsburgh. They're tougher games for them.
Mm-hmm.
At Miami is a tough game. It'll come down to like the at Georgia Tech, Boston College at home, at Miami. If they do okay against them teams, Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech is a weird team because we talk about all the time about how they have good athletes, but they don't always play good football.
Oh yeah,
we'll see how that works out this year, but they could beat Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at their games from last year. They didn't play Georgia Tech last year, so I guess that obviously that game can go either way. I think because I think they're comparable rosters. I think
Georgia Tech's a little bit better than a lot of people think they are.
I think that they're actually comparable teams as far as talent and roster and experience and everything. But I do think that Murray State is a game they should win. They could beat Indiana. Boston College is a physical team, so that will be probably a really low scoring game, I would think.
Yeah.
At NC State usually plays good defense.
I think they might win that one.
I don't think they're going to beat Notre Dame, obviously, even though they're at home, but we'll see.
I hear that.
At Pittsburgh is a tough game for them.
Who's Pittsburgh's quarterback, though? Because I know Solova's not there no more.
I don't know who their quarterback is now, to be honest with you.
We'll get to them at some point.
We will. But Duke, they should win. Mm-hmm. Virginia Tech, again, could go either way. Virginia's another team. They played really horrible football last year. Then sometimes you're like, oh, well, where's this team at every week, So at Miami is a tough game. I don't think Miami's going to be very good this year. So that's a game they could win, but they're still athletic and they're still Miami. So we'll see.
Yeah.
And Kentucky's, again, replacing their quarterback. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. I think that those last going to be tough for them. Kentucky will have their quarterback in play for some time in the season. So I don't think that's going to be if it was early in the season, I'd be like, all right, Kentucky might beat Kentucky, but Kentucky's quarterback should be in full swing. The scheme, they can figure out, hey, this quarterback's not that good. Let's run a little bit more. that kind of deal. So they kind of get a swing of how their offense will be at that point of the season. So literally the last game of the regular season. So I think those team games can definitely be tough. Notre Dame and Pitt, and NC State. That's a tough stretch right there. We'll see how that goes. Um, that's 4 games for me. Georgia Tech can sneak up on them. Like I said, Georgia Tech is not a easy team to just beat, especially at home. They're gonna actually be in a Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
You know what, Jerome? I was just looking at the roster. Phil Jakovic transferred from Boston College to Pitt.
Yeah.
Guy who actually was on Notre Dame 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jakovic. I think he has talent.
Forgot about him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I honestly, until just now, I didn't know that he was there.
Yeah, because he actually originally transferred from somewhere else, right? Was it Boston College?
From Notre Dame.
No, from Notre Dame. He transferred from
From
somewhere
Notre
else,
Dame
right?
to Boston College.
Oh, to Boston College. Now he's at Pitt. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
I was thinking the opposite way. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's very interesting. Okay. Well,
it is
like I
up
said,
there for sure.
that is a tough stretch. I think they can get close to what they have, or maybe might slip maybe 1 game less. Maybe. Like I said, that Boston College game. I'm sorry, not Boston College. That Georgia Tech game, sneaky game. They got 2 stretch games. Two of which is at the end of the season, and then you can get a team like a Boston College that might get maybe a Virginia Tech.
I mean, I know it's a different. I know it's a different season, but I'm looking at last year. I mean, last year they beat NC State, so you know they beat Pitt, they beat Virginia, they lost to Boston College, but they lost by 1 point.
Mm.
So that's a game that could swing either way.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Florida State, but they only lost that game by 4 points.
Mm.
So we'll see, man. I think that again, I think they're a good team. I think they'll be okay. I do.
Definitely. All right, let's move on to our next team. We're gonna be talking about TCU, the TCU Horned Frogs. They're gonna have a big overhaul right now, losing a lot of players to the NFL draft, undrafted guys, some guys were just seniors that just moved on. I do want to point out one guy in particular, and that will be Trey Sanders, the running back they got, who transferred in. He's gonna be a guy. I think he's gonna be a guy. Another guy we interviewed a few years ago, I think he's gonna be a guy as well. Corey Warren as a running back. Just a couple of names real quick. I don't want to take your thunder, Ray, but what do you think about this offense? Obviously, they lost their quarterback, so it's going to be a bit of a quarterback competition going into it. What's your overall thought of the TCU Horned Frogs that were?
I'm making Monty Bailey too, who's a junior there this year. I think that Xavier Williams, a junior wide receiver, is a nice little player. Of course, Andrew Coker is their best offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of and what I like about their offensive linemen is they have three returning guys that are seniors and 2 more that are juniors. So they should have a pretty good offensive line going into the season. I do worry about their quarterback because I don't know a lot about Chandler Morris. I know he's a fairly talented kid. I just don't know. I've not seen him play that much. So I think TCU would be fine. I mean, I like their coach. I think that Sonny Dykes is a good coach. Again, Chandler Morris is going to probably try to replace Max Dugan. I mean, Max Dugan was a really good player for them last year. So I think that what you're going to see is, along with the running backs you mentioned and the one I just did, Bailey, I think they're going to try to run the ball maybe a little more than they did last year.
Yeah, definitely. Trey Sanders is a guy from IG Academy. Like I said, he transferred over. Corey Warren, a guy, again, we interviewed him years ago when he was in high school. Very talented running back. So I like their running back situation. I think their offensive line, like you said, right? So, and Bailey back there as well. So you kind of mix those three in. with the offensive line, play action type of offense, they can do some stuff. I think so. I'm not gonna sit there and say they're gonna be another 13-2. I mean, that's kind of
No,
far fetched.
that's crazy.
So
I mean, it's going to be hard because when you take the dynamic player that Dugan was from their offense, it's going to be a little bit of a different offense.
yeah, you got to remember I think two or three of their best receivers left the program.
Yeah, I mean, the only one left.
I think a lineman or two left, and a bunch of defensive guys. So speaking of defense, let's talk about the defense, right? What do you think about how those guys faring right now?
I mean, the only guy that's not like I like uh, Damian Williams or Demonic Williams. I
Yeah.
like him, but he's the only guy with any experience. They
Yeah.
have two juniors playing next to him and a freshman. So we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not a great situation, but they do have two starting linebackers that are returning. Cornerback Josh Newton is a good football player and he's a senior, so I think their defense will be good. I expect TCU to be a 9 or a 10 win season this year. I don't think they're going to be that bad. I think they're going to be pretty good still.
Yeah, I think it's going to really fare on the defense, really, Ray.
Yeah.
Like I said, the offense can still function without but losing as many defensive players they have last year, it's going to be tough. I'll just say that. I think it's going to be tough. So
I mean, like they last year they beat Texas, they beat Baylor. I don't know if I expect them to do that again this year. They won really close games to those teams last year, and again, you don't have Dugan returning, so that's gonna be they're gonna be really hard games to win this year. They beat Baylor last year by 1, and they beat Texas by a touchdown. So I'm not saying they won't win those games, but I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a little harder than it was last year. That's all.
100%. Yeah. Chris is giving them 7-5.
I would not be surprised. I would.
We're gonna talk about that in a second, Chris. So let's get to their schedule real quick. So like I said last year, 13-2, trying to give them 3 wins. 13-2 last year, going all the way to the championship game, losing very drastically to the Georgia Bulldogs. But coming into this season, they're going to begin 2 games at home versus Colorado and Nicholls State. They'll be at Houston. Another 2 home game stretch versus SMU and West Virginia. They're gonna be at Iowa State. They're gonna be home versus BYU. They'll be at 2 games after that, which they'll be away. Kansas State and Texas Tech. They'll be home for 2 games versus Texas and Baylor, and close it out at Oklahoma. Looking at that schedule, Ray, what are you thinking?
I think Chris is one more. It is a tough schedule. I still think they'll win 8 or 9 games, though. I do.
And I think
BYU is a tough game, even though it's at home for them. They're not going to beat Oklahoma. They're probably not going to beat Baylor and Texas. If they win one of those games, they'll be lucky or better than maybe we think. I think that they could start out though 3-0.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be like key. Can they have a good start to
Colorado is still a new kind of team. I know they got a lot of hype right now with Dion being there, but they're still a new team. They're still kind of like working out the roster a little bit. They had a lot of transfers in and transfers out. So that, especially you're kind of catching that team at the right time,
Yeah, it is, but it is also a little scarier because like you are playing a team that's going to have a lot of different players on it. So how is that going to look on the field? You're right. You know what I mean? But I mean they manhandled them last year. But it's going to be again. We know that TCU is going to be a little bit different, and Colorado is going to be a more talented team. So
I just think it's 2 completely different teams. Like if there's two teams that you want to talk about, two completely different teams, it is probably these two teams, honestly.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a very interesting first game. Nicole State they should beat. Houston lost their quarterback, lost their best wide receivers actually. So that's going to be interesting how they play on offense. I think they got most of their defense still there. SMU, that could go either way. I think. They might be SMU. They might be SMU.
I mean, that's going to be the thing. If they can beat Colorado in that first game,
Mm-hmm.
then Nichols at Houston, SMU, West Virginia, they're all winnable games.
That's true.
And that really could be like that could really determine if they're going to win
Mm-hmm.
7 games, like Chris said, or maybe 8 or 9, like we made.
Hey, like Chris said too, if they, teams get on the road, they can start, piling up some wins at the end of it too. So
They can. I mean, and again, they could. The Texas and Baylor games, like that's looking way too far ahead. They're not going to beat Oklahoma. They're just not. They're not. I don't think they're. I don't think they're physical enough to beat
they
Oklahoma.
might not even beat Texas.
They may not. I mean, again,
Baylor depends. Baylor depends how the season's kind of going, how confident they're playing with their new quarterbacks and receivers and things like that. So it's really hard to say, but I think that like Chris said, it is a tough stretch at the end. They could very well lose all 3 of those games. So
they could, but again, they could lose. I don't think Kansas State is going to be as good as they've been the last couple of years. I think they're all is going to take a little hit. They lost their running back, a couple of players on offense, other players on offense, and their defense is not that great anyway.
That defensive line got decimated.
They did. So I think Kansas State
3 guys on the defensive line on end of that. So
yeah, Kansas State is a game they could definitely win. At Texas Tech, it's a hard game to call right now. So
definitely, yeah. We'll definitely see how that goes, though. I'm very interested to see how that team is at the end of the year. That might be one of those teams to keep an eye on for sure.
I mean, like Sonny Dykes is a good coach, so I don't expect them to like completely fall off the face of the earth. But
yeah,
they're not going to be as good as last year, obviously.
Yeah, definitely.
That was one of them. Like that's for TCU. That's like I don't want to say it's the best they could be, but it's the best they've been. So we'll see.
I might be saying what you're about to say, Ray, because I don't think you can get that good that fast. Like, or it's gonna take them a while to be as good as they were last year.
Right. I think what it is, like we talked about, like not to the same extent, like with LSU and some of these other SEC teams, they'll have their year or 2 runs, and then they get to rebuild a little bit. I think TCU is going to be the same way in their conference. They're going to be like, they can win 10, 11, 12 games again down the road, but it's not going to be this year. It's going to be let's come back next year or our juniors or seniors or freshmen or sophomores and see how we recruit. And that will decide everything. But again, that's where Sonny Dykes shines. He's a good recruiter too. So we'll see.
As good as if you think about it, last time TCU was even close as good as they were this year was another 5 years ago when people thought they should have gotten a playoff and they didn't. So
right, well, that's what it is. Again, it's going to be after they have them 2, 3, 4 years and where they're bringing back kids, and then they'll have that senior year where the team's loaded with senior players, and they have a nice season. Again, there's TCU. They're a good program, and they recruit fairly well, but it's still a matter of combining those teams to really like have the season like they had last year.
Correct. So sorry, TCU guys. I hope you do well, but you never know. You never know, though. You never know. So
yeah, honestly, out of all the teams in that conference, though, TCU is one of the teams I like the best.
I get you.
I mean, as far as like rooting for them, I mean, I don't care about Texas or I don't care about any of them teams. So I don't.
All right, let's get to our next team, LSU. So LSU had actually a really good season last year, being 10-4. A team that a lot of people thought probably should have gotten in the playoffs. I believe they beat Alabama last year, right? Yeah,
They did.
yeah. So that was a big hump for them. That was a big change for them.
Yeah,
Coming into this year with their senior quarterback, Jaden Daniels, he's going to be the guy again. Really, really interesting to see how he does this year with LSU. Take that next step, and he'd be a better quarterback right there. Obviously, they got Noah Kane, another ING Academy guy, running back right there. Ray, John Emery, Jr. Another guy that we interviewed some years ago, really solid player coming off an injury. And always at LSU always have good wide receivers in there. So, Ray, what do you think about this team all
I
together?
expect LSU to be good this year. I mean, of course, I have your buddy Brian Kelly coaching them, so
Your boy.
I'm not a big fan of him, but I do think they have a pretty loaded team as far as talent wise.
Right.
Offensive line's really good. Will Campbell, Garrett Dillinger, Charles Turner, Mike Frazier, Emory Jones, like you said. Jaden Daniels is a good quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they do have they don't have a great defense. I think there's some nice players there. I think Mason Smith is a good player. Naki Wingo is a good player on the defensive line. Harold Perkins, the linebacker, is a good football player. And Greg Brooks, their safety, is a nice senior football player. But they don't have the talent on defense that they have on offense. I think that's where LSU. I think LSU is going to be a good team again this year.
Yeah.
I think really 2025 is when they can maybe actually make a legitimate run at maybe winning a title again.
Yeah, I mean, with all of their, I mean, they went on a recruiting frenzy in the beginning of last year. So I think that they got some guys that are in there that could be really good um, later on and on a team. Just talking about some guys in here. Let's see. Major Burns is a guy that coming off an injury, he should be good this year. Um, let me see who else. Uh, just seen him. Dang, I just passed his name. Dylan Brown, I think he's going to be a good safety corner for them soon. Omar Spapes, they got him coming back this year. Really good linebacker for. He's going to be a solid guy coming into the draft as well. Wingo, another edge rusher. Um, so yeah, a couple of guys. What do you think overall? Like some of the other players, Jackson Howard, another guy.
I mean, I actually like Greg Penn, the
Hmm.
linebacker who's coming in. I think that I I don't think LSU's defensively is where they need to be right now. I think get
Yeah.
these guys in here. Some of them are young.
Hmm.
Get them some experience and have another good class coming next year. Again, I think they'll be a good team this year, but I
Yeah.
think 24, 25 is where LSU makes a run. Of course, Brian Kelly will choke in big games, but they have a shot.
Yeah. I mean, what was that game that there was the two teams was going back and forth? Was that Oklahoma?
It was Oklahoma.
Yeah, yeah. That was a crazy game. That was probably one of the most fun games I ever seen, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, they,
Not
they
overall last year.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, man, they had a really good year last year. They did.
mhm,
They beat Alabama. They beat Florida. They beat Ole Miss pretty handily.
yeah.
They had a nice year. They beat
Did they
Texas.
beat TCU or they lost to TCU?
They lost a bad game to Texas A&M though, and they
Mhm.
got manhandled by Georgia, which doesn't
Yeah,
surprise anybody.
yeah,
But
yeah,
there are the games where, but that's what I mean. Like they gave up 50 points to Georgia, and when
mhm,
you think of Georgia, you think of defense, not really offense. So that's where I mean, like that's where their defense needs to take strides. I mean, I'm not sure who their defensive coordinator is. I guess I should know that, but I don't know off the top of my head. But I think that's really where they have to improve. And the bad thing is, though, Brian Kelly had a hard time hiring good defensive coaches at Notre Dame. I mean, he did get what's his name, the head coach there, but he had to get into hiring him. So
yeah. Freeman.
yeah, Marcus Freeman. I mean, he had to get talked into hiring Marcus Freeman, even though he tried to take Freeman to LSU with him.
Yeah. I heard about that.
No, he tried to take Marcus Freeman with him when he left left Notre Dame. Just like he was going to take Tommy Rees too, but Tommy Rees decided to wait and go to Alabama, I guess.
Yeah. Smart on him. Hey, do what you gotta do. So
well, man, you go to Alabama, and man, Tommy Rees is a smart guy. I didn't always love his play calling at Notre Dame, but he's a smart guy. I'm not going to pretend like he's not. And honestly, you go there with Nick Saban.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
you're going to get talent. There's no question about that.
You're gonna get talent, and let's be honest. You playing under that type of team, you can hire a lot of your own deficiencies as a coach. Honestly,
you can, and not only that, it can easily turn you into where you get an opportunity to coach your own team.
Yeah, and and if up to par with the team can make you better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you
how to be a better coach and do certain things.
I mean, it can't hurt you to go and work under Nick Saban either. I mean, let's face it. Man, people. I'm not really a Nick Saban fan, but you won't hear me say nothing bad about his coaching ability. That's all.
Yeah, same thing with Bill Belichick. I'm not a fan with him, but
I'm not a bit. They're very similar personalities too, which is weird.
Yeah. I think Nick Saban is a little bit more open than
a little bit more what?
More open.
Only because he has to, because he's dealing with children and not.
That's true.
Even though I guess we're dealing with grown men in college students are getting paid now, so
yeah. All right, let's get into LSU's schedule for this year. Obviously, like we talked about, they're going to be 10-4. They were 10-4 last year, and going into this year, they will be starting the game at Florida State. They're going to be at home versus Grambling. They're going to be at Mississippi State. They'll be home versus Arkansas. They'll be away for 2 games versus Oklahoma. Ole Miss and Missouri. They'll be at home for Auburn and Army, and then they'll be at Alabama. They'll be home for Florida, Georgia State, and Texas A&M to close out the season. So, with that schedule, right, what you thinking?
I'm thinking 9 wins.
Thinking around the same too, yeah.
I'm thinking 9 wins. I think the Texas A&M game could go either way. I mean, I know that's later, the end of the year. The Florida State game is a tough game for them, man.
First game, yeah.
Tough game for them. Grambling, they should beat. Mississippi State, they kind of beat last year pretty easily, so I'm assuming they'll beat that team this year. But I don't know that for sure. Arkansas is not a great team, and their defense is horrible, so they'll probably beat them. Ole Miss is a game where you manhandled them last year, but that game was at your ballpark last year too. So, again, it'll be closer, but I still think they'll beat them. I think they'll beat Missouri. Auburn, they'll probably win. I mean, especially since it's at home. Army, they'll probably outlast them. They're going to lose Alabama. They'll probably beat Florida.
Right. I don't know. Alabama, they beat Alabama last year, and now this year they don't have Bryce Young.
Jerome, there's no way Nick Saban's losing to Brian Kelly 2 years in a row. That is not going to happen.
That would be crazy.
Not going to happen. If Alabama has to win the game 13-10, Alabama will win that game. Okay, man?
They'll figure it out, right?
Yeah. I mean, Georgia State, they should win that game pretty easily. And then Texas A&M at home, they should win. But again, it's Texas A&M. It's not going to be an easy game. So I do see they'll win 9 games though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Florida State, like you said, hard game. Especially a first game. They will be at Florida State, but I do think overall they're a better team than Florida State right now. So I think I'm not gonna say I have a hard stance on. Yeah, they're definitely gonna win that game, but I think they can win that game. Grambling should beat that game. Mississippi State, I think they should. That might be a tough game, especially not at home. Arkansas, like you said, they should win that game. Ole Miss, they should win that game. I think they will beat Missouri. Auburn. I think Auburn and LSU always have a tough game. That rivalry game, they're very close.
Yeah, that'll be a big game for them.
That'd be a good game. Army, they should be. I think Alabama. They beat them last year. I think it just depends on that quarterback position. But also, we already know that Nick Saban wants to run the ball. He always had good running backs, and we will talk about Alabama at some point before the season starts. Talk about their roster, but I know Nick Saban's gonna probably run the ball a lot more now, having Monroe or however quarterback's name is. Florida, I think they should beat them. I think it's still gonna be close, even with them losing Anthony Richardson. And like you said, with Texas A&M, that's a game. That's a team that we always say it's a very talented team, but for whatever reason, they don't win the game. So I'm with you, Ray. I'm around the same. I'm about the same. 9-10 wins.
I think honestly, even like the Alabama game, if that were like a game like early in the season, I'd say, you know what? Alabama's starting a young quarterback. We'll see what happens. Maybe they beat them, but that late in the season, I think Alabama will find their feet underneath of them. And don't be surprised if Ty Simpson comes in and does a play some quarterback for them this year.
Definitely.
He's only a freshman, but he's a talented kid, and we'll see what happens there. So,
yeah, I agree. All right, let's get to our last game, last team rather. Penn State. So Penn State is coming into this year for the first time in it felt like a million years with a new quarterback in play. Drew Adler is going to be their starting quarterback as of right now. This team is very talented at the running back position. Wide receivers are very solid as well. Let's get right into it, Ray. I'm going to just say this. Drew Adler is way better than the last quarterback, and Clifford. I think he's way better. I just think it's an immediate upgrade. I'm just going to say that right now.
Agreed. I thought Sean Clifford was. I mean, he had his moments where he looked like a good solid player.
Last year, he had a better year than he normally would. But that's the thing about Clifford. He'll show you some stuff sometimes, but then he'll just revert right back to being.
Well, you have a running back like Nicholas Singleton that you're giving the ball to in every different way. I mean, it kind of helps you out a little bit. So, 100%. I mean, they're a talented offense. Keandre Lambert-Smith, their wide receiver, is a good football player. Their offensive line is very, very good. So, I mean, again, they'll be a good, solid Penn State team like usual. Will they win 11 games? I don't know if they'll win 11, but they'll win 10. I'm not unlike most people in this area, I'm not a huge Penn State fan. I used to be a fan when I was a kid. My dad was always a Penn State fan. And through all the crazy stuff that went on at Penn State at one time, I'm not going to get into any of it. I do still respect Joe Paterno as one of the great college coaches of all time. Yeah. And I respect their program. I just don't – I need people – I know people are going to think I'm crazy for saying this. I don't think their coach is that good. I think he's a great recruiter. I just don't think he's a good game coach. I don't. So
okay. Well, I'm just gonna point out some guys' names. I mean, we already talked about Drew Adler. I think that again, upgrade at quarterback position. That's gonna be really tough. Trey Potts, Nickel Singletary, and what's the other running back they have? Allen. Those three, man. Nicole Singleton coming in as a freshman last year and playing the way he did with Allen, they had to come in because of some injuries, things like that. They played like they were vets. And you kind of look down the road, talked about a couple of the receivers, but I'm going to point out their tight end, Theo Johnson. I think he's going to be a really really good tight end as well. Offensive line is very very solid. Offensive lineman. Um, I'm going to say, Ray, this this Penn State team got me kind of worried. I'm not going to lie, especially on offense. I know they got some dogs on defense as well. We're going to get into that in a second, but Ray, man, this team is looking kind of good right now. I was definitely say Penn State looked like a better team. They only lost 2 games last year, and you see who was that quarterback then, and they was still kind of discovering who were their running backs when like I said, with all the injuries and stuff that was going on at that position, and they didn't lose a beat. Now they got like 3 good guys at running back position right now, and that's scary. And they're still very very young guys. So offensively, they're set. Anything else you want to add to their offense, Ray?
No, I think, like you said, I think Theo Johnson is a good football player. Singleton and Allen are both good running backs. Again, I think that they've upgraded a quarterback this year. I think Penn State's offense will be really good, and I think their defense will be solid too.
Yeah.
But I don't fear anything with James Franklin as a game day coach. So.
Let's talk about the defense real quick. A guy I definitely want to shout out, my guy Smith Albert. We interviewed him going into his senior year. I think he's going to be a draftable guy coming out this year as well. Anybody else kind of stand out to you, Ray?
Yeah, Keaton Ellis, senior safety, Kalen King, their junior cornerback. I have some different players highlighted here. Akeem Beeman, their senior defensive tackle. Isaiah Adisa Isaac, their senior defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Curtis Jacobs, their junior outside linebacker. They have good players on defense too.
Yeah,
they do. I worry about James Franklin. Sometimes gets a little cute and starts running gadget plays and a lot of stuff on offense that he doesn't really have to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Penn State would be a better team. Like, honestly, I know I'm going to sound like I'm beating a dead horse here. When you're a Big Ten team, you should run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And everything should come off of the run. I think James Allen gets a little too tricky with his offense. And I know he's got talented wide receivers still. He does.
He does.
But their running backs is the bread and butter on this team. Mm-hmm. They need to find a way to get both of them the ball as much as they can.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, the running backs are definitely, especially Singleton. I think he's going to be a guy that, people are going to need to know. Like, I think people know his name, but they're going to really know his name after this year. He's going to be a guy. And
agreed, Jerome. I think that he's going to, when it's all said and done, this kid's going to be a first-round pick.
I agree.
He's so dynamic as a football player. He really is. Doesn't matter. You give him a little bit of space. He's one of them guys you give him a little crack, man, and he can just go all the way. He's really, really good. I mean,
right now he's looking at 220, 228, man.
Yeah, and he's such a talented football player, man. He really is. I don't root for Penn State or against them, but I think it's funny. I think when, except for Ohio State, because their wide receivers are so good, every other Big Ten team that I see, when they run the ball, they're just better teams.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's not like they don't run the ball. They have.
Yeah.
But they always have stud receivers on that team. So, you got to find a way to get all your playmakers. So, I mean, we're with Michigan and Penn State and even Pittsburgh, even though they're not a Big Ten team, but they're that type of a team. When they're running the ball, they're just better teams.
Correct. No, I agree. All right, let's look into their season, the schedule for the season. Like I said, last year they were 11-2. This year they'll be starting off the year at home 2 games. West Virginia and Delaware. They'll be at Illinois. They'll be home versus Iowa, at Northwestern. They'll be home versus UMass. They'll be at Ohio State. That's interesting. They'll be away. I'm sorry, home for Indiana, away for Maryland, home for Michigan, home for Rutgers, and then finish the year at Michigan State. What do you think, Ray?
I think, you know what? They'll win 9. They'll win 10 games.
10?
They'll win 10 games. Easy.
Ray, I'm thinking they gonna repeat from last year, 11-2. The only two teams I think that give them the biggest threat are Michigan and Ohio State, honestly.
Yeah, but I think they, I think they'll lose those games.
You're right. I do too. But if they lose those two games,
It's 10
like
wins.
I don't see any other team competing with them though. I mean, the next best team I think that can compete with them probably Iowa, maybe. Like really, realistically, all right. Starting off the year, West Virginia, then Delaware, Illinois took a big hit on a lot of their players from the draft. Um, Iowa again, next best outside of Ohio State, maybe. Maybe Maryland too. I'm sorry, I'm not giving Maryland enough credit. I think Maryland can be a team that could possibly knock them off as well. Northwestern, I think they should beat them. UMass, they should beat them. Ohio State can go either way. I mean, we gotta see how Ohio State plays this year. I don't even remember who their quarterback is, honestly. Um, who is the quarterback? Man, that's interesting. I know they got yeah, I don't know who the quarterback is. That's interesting. We'll talk. I guess we'll talk about that when we get to them.
Kyle McCord.
I'm sorry.
Kyle McCord.
Okay.
Guy, and we'll see how that works out. But that's who they have listed as a starter right now.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Indiana, I think they should beat them. Maryland, maybe they should beat them, but maybe they give them a tough time. Michigan, they can go either way. End of the year too, so both teams will basically know how their offense and defense should be. Rutgers, they should beat them, and Michigan State, I think they should beat them as well. So
I think they should beat Michigan State, but that's a game that they could lose.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a rivalry game, so you can't like.
I'm not going to. I don't think they'll lose to Maryland. I think Maryland plays well. They still lose probably by a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll beat Michigan. I mean, the game isn't in Penn State, so I guess there is a shot.
Yeah.
They will. I don't think they're not going to beat Ohio State. I just don't think they will. They never usually do.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa's a tough game.
It was a close game last year, though, right?
No, it was.
Yeah.
It was a close game. Ohio State played close games with a lot of teams last year for some reason.
Yeah. Ohio State was not looking good last year. I don't know what it was about.
They did not play consistent like they have.
I mean, they still made it to the championship.
And I don't know if Chris Thomas is still here, but I'd like to ask him what he thinks about. There's a lot of rumors if Ohio State loses to Michigan again, Ryan Day will be fired.
I mean, if it was the reverse, I would be saying the same thing. So
that's the big. Everybody keeps saying if they lose to Michigan again, then he'll be fired this year.
Yeah, like I said, like if it was me, if it was the opposite way, I'll be thinking the same way. I mean, you already know how I felt about Harbaugh losing so much to them. So,
I mean, and the funny thing is, Ohio State just not used to losing to anybody, really. You know, like
definitely.
And you mean, and it's that's, let's face it, that's their rivalry. I mean, the only team that Michigan hates as much as Ohio State, or maybe as Michigan State. For some reason, that's a big rivalry game for you guys too. I guess because same state,
Little brother.
Yeah. It's all about like that, like even Michigan State. When Michigan State can run the ball, they're a good team.
Dude, when he had Kenneth Walker, that was scary, dude.
Anything else?
Yeah.
I mean, T.J. Duckett, Cedric Irvin, Ladavian Bell. They're the guys that the guys that them bell cow guys that carry their offense, because they always play pretty good defense. Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on if they can balance out their offense and keep the ball away.
They never had a consistently good quarterback though. Like I don't even remember the last time they had a good Kirk Cousins. That's about it. That's
Cousins was actually a good player. There was one other guy who wasn't bad, but I can't remember his name right now. But no, honestly, Jerome, think about the conference. Name the quarterbacks that the Big Ten has produced.
I can name one.
Tom Brady. Name another one. Elvis Gerback from Michigan was good.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good quarterback. He was. Name a good from Ohio State, really. Name a good quarterback from Penn State. Kerry College. That's laughable. That's laughable, man.
Yo, that's weird because like I felt like they had a good quarterback, but like thinking about it, I'm like I can't even name
Kerry College was probably the best one, man. And he was a good college player. Chuck Fusina and Todd Blackledge won a lot of games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think they were great quarterbacks, though.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were good system players that won a lot of games because Penn State, great defense and good running games, So
definitely. But yeah, so that's gonna do it for us today, guys. I gotta run, so we can't linger a little bit, but it was great having everybody here. Chris Thomas, thanks for getting on. Definitely check us out next week where we will again be doing our 2023 to 2024 preview of the college football season. So if there is a team that you would like us to cover next week, please put it in the comment section below. And while you're there, please like and subscribe. Help us out, man. We do wholeheartedly appreciate it. It does help us run this thing and let us keep going. And and like always, if you on live, you can always do our comments like Chris Thomas was earlier. But if you can't watch us live, definitely come in and go into the comment section on our page under the replay, and you can definitely watch it, comment anything that we said, any players that you want to highlight, put it in the comment section. We reply to every comment, so definitely put that in there as soon as you can. And while you're there as well, right there where Ray is, right under that QR code right over here, you can scan that and go into all our social media, all the players that we talk about, interview players, players that we have or will interview. They will be on our YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter accounts. We do a lot of highlights of players that are going into a lot of these teams and things like that. So definitely go check that out so you can be aware of a lot of players that's going to be on your favorite college football team in the future. So again, that's going to do it for us. My name is Jerome Jones. This is Ray Roberts. Thank you guys so much for checking us out today. We do appreciate y'all, and y'all have a good one. Go Nugs! Woo!